My name is Jay Foote, and I'm going to be presenting Embodiment Now. Just want to make sure that we have everyone attending before we get started. But thank you for coming to EFR's webinar today. I am going to be presenting ideas on why embodiment is important, essential, as my slide says. I'm going to explore awareness strategies to become more present and embodied, and use principles of the Alexander technique to find more balance, ease, and flow while releasing excess tension, feelings of stress, and any pain. So a little bit about myself. I am an Alexander technique teacher, a musician, and currently an EFR intern. I am studying to get my master's in social work from the University of Iowa. I have a master's degree in jazz improvisation and performance from William Patterson University. I lived in New York City for 18 years and played with lots of bands and on the late night television shows and hundreds of performances as a substitute bassist on many Broadway shows. I have produced 8 albums in the last 10 years for songwriters, mostly Americana and folk things. I trained to teach the Alexander technique at the Balance Arts Center in Manhattan, and after I finished that training, I became a senior assistant trainer for 5 years, and I host a weekly body-oriented meditation class at Siva Counseling in Des Moines on Monday nights. So let's go to some definitions. Why embodiment? Embodiment is a state of being embodied, a way of being present to one's physical nature, experiencing your body in space as a reflection of your experience of being alive. Mindfulness is a state of consciousness or awareness. Mindfulness is a very popular idea right now. People are constantly talking about mindfulness, and in today's frame of it, we're going to be talking about mindfulness from the frame of increasing awareness. And to that end, we're going to be using principles of the Alexander technique today. And for those of you who don't know, the Alexander technique is an awareness building practice that helps you explore how your habits, thoughts, and assumptions affect your choices. And traditionally, this is in the frame of your body and in movement, but it could also be in any other thing that you're making choices with, whether that's with your mind, thoughts responding to any sort of stimulus, and then once you figure out why or how you're making those choices, the Alexander technique gives you a process for making new choices, deciding which habits you like, which ones you want to make more efficient, change. So we are embodied beings. We have bodies, and in the last, well, as long as philosophers have been philosophizing, many of them have suggested that the mind and the body are separate. Like walking sticks with heads, we've become disembodied. And the digital revolution has not helped. We spend most of our days looking at two-dimensional screens at the detriment of our physical nature. And I believe it is time to reconnect, make time to notice what we notice in our bodies, and be more present. Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am," and he truly believed that the mind was superior to the body. The body was just a vehicle to walk the mind around, and the mind really was the thing that made the choices. And that made sense for the time he was in. And recent research has shown that that's not actually how it works. We have tended to value our heads over our hearts. In English, there's actually no word that describes the unity that is the mind-body. The best we can do is psychophysical. And since our language doesn't support the idea that the mind and body are one, we don't have a way to make those one. And I believe that to make more healthy decisions, we need to understand how our mind and body are connected. We have an autonomic nervous system, and I'm not going to explain that in much depth today. It's beyond the scope of this webinar. There's a great book by Bessel van der Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score, and it's been on the New York Times bestseller list for a few years now. And in the book, he refers to Stephen Porges's polyvagal theory, and in that study of the autonomic nervous system, they've discovered that 80% of the autonomic nerves are traveling in one direction. And that is not from the mind to the body, it's actually from the body to the mind. They've done a bunch of studies to show that individuals who think about the future tend to lean forward. And I have a personal example. When I was subbing on the Broadway show Hamilton, I noticed over the course of a couple hundred shows that whenever I leaned forward with my bass to get closer to the music, or because I felt like I was really into it, I noticed that I would start playing ahead of the beat. And in jazz and in funk and soul music, people are constantly saying lean back, lay back, which leaning back is a really body focused frame, and lean back is play a little bit behind the beat, or if you're in front, play back on the beat. In these same studies where they're studying how people interact, they've given people two clipboards, a heavier one and a lighter one, and they found that people carrying heavier clipboards judged their own opinions to be more valuable. Though there was gravity and weight to their decisions, and that was reflected in the choices and what they felt about their own thoughts. Similarly, people who were found holding a warm cup of coffee compared to an iced coffee were more likely to judge someone that they were speaking with as trustworthy. I feel like this is really interesting and reflects this idea that we are receiving physical cues, and those cues are subconsciously affecting our decisions. There are a bunch of embodied philosophy, embodied cognition, embodied linguistics, embodied psychology. All of these embodied movements have come up in the last 15 to 25 years. And in embodied cognition and embodied linguistics, they've noticed that our language is very metaphor-based and based on body experiences. And to that end, I've listed a few things that went over my head. I have control over it, is like physical space. I'm feeling down today. And when people say that, they usually sink down. He really warmed up to me. I feel like I've definitely said that about people I've met that maybe I didn't feel like they liked me very much, but warmed up is this physical sensation. I know people, and I've said myself, I follow my gut instincts. that's really body centric, and I added they're so laid back, as in quite literally laying back in your body. In my work as an Alexander Technique teacher, I've helped people find more balance and connection and flow, and as a result, they've gotten out of pain. I've mostly worked with musicians because that's been my network. And when people release tension that they've held in their torso, maybe tension that they've held for years and they were subconsciously holding, it happens more often than not when someone comes for a lesson with pain and we get them to take a big breath and release their back, neck, or wrist. Often emotion will come up and there will be either a sigh or an acknowledgement that there's a feeling of connection, and often people will become emotional and cry a little bit or shed a tear. They will have also they'll have thoughts about why something has happened or why they've been holding, or actual memories of uh, decisions that they made in grade school or in the last 20 years ago, where I was holding my back like that because I saw this guy do that and I thought that looked cool. And so I find it very interesting that we hold these bodies, thoughts, and emotions in these ideas, emotions, thoughts, memories, all in our bodies. And when we release this and find connection, those ideas and memories come up. When people describe writer's block or creative blocks, one of the tools that people have used for a very, very long time is to just move your body to get unstuck. So I encourage my students to go for a walk. If you're feeling congested in your body or you have writer's block, just move your body. There were many famous thinkers that walked daily, and I've listed 4 here, but if you Google walk daily philosophy or writers or actors or musicians, that there are many books that have been written about this. And to this end of being embodied, when we understand what we're feeling in our bodies, or maybe just acknowledging that we're feeling anything at all in our bodies, we can then make better choices about how we want to live in a more embodied way, more in touch with our values, or just be conscious of what's happening in our physicalness. So I'm going to now list a bunch of ways that people try to regulate their autonomic nervous systems, or just find some sort of connection or balance. And then we'll take a look at this list and talk about what connects it all. So breathing, going for a walk. If I'm feeling really dysregulated, I like to go take a shower and feel that water on my body and feel cleaner. Exercise, yoga, finding connection and balance and poise and getting the blood moving. To feel really present, going out for a special meal, drinking wine. Some people like to use their sense of smell. I included meditation. People like to go dancing and listen to music. It helps people feel very present and very in their bodies. Making a fire, creating warmth, and watching the fire flicker at night is one of my favorite things to do. Getting a massage, making love, all of these things have to do with being in the present moment in your body. And so framing this as, how do we get into our bodies to be more present? That gives us a sense of relief and creates an opportunity for us to stop thinking about the past, stop thinking about the future, and just be here and be thankful. So using the Alexander technique, we're going to actually practice a little bit, and I'm going to overview the approach, and then we're actually going to practice. And I can see the chat here, so in a bit I'm going to ask people what you've noticed, but first let's overview it. So we're going to create space, and that means a bunch of different things. Actually, it's space as in creating some time to be present, to be still, to slow down, actually putting a pause in before a choice is another way to think of it, instead of just reacting when the phone rings and like jumping, like noticing, how do I feel in my body when somebody breaks unexpectedly in front of me? Or how do I feel when the phone rings unexpectedly? Or how do I feel when my partner says something to me that feels like accusatory, perhaps? It's just slowing down and being aware of what's happening. Also, creating space is about physical space. So sometimes that means to go away and shut a door. That also can mean being aware of how your back, neck, and head and pelvis are all connected. And instead of sitting like this, maybe create a little space so that your head can balance at the top of your spine. Creating space also might mean closing your eyes, walking a little more slowly, creating some time to observe. Now we're going to talk about breathing a little bit. When we create space, we can close our lips. If it's possible to breathe through your nose, that's ideal. Observing the whole breathing mechanism. So the ribs are moving in your back. The air goes in through your nose and passes over the back of your tongue. Allow your tongue to be soft and wide in your mouth. And then feel how your ribs move. And your ribs are mostly in your back. 2/3 of your ribs are in your back. So allowing your ribs in the back to move. And your diaphragm will respond to your breath. And then we're going to just notice what we notice. So notice your breath, notice the connections with the ground. Notice the head, neck, and back relationships. Other things we can notice are our sense of smell, the noises in our space, feeling what we're actually feeling, noticing what we're noticing, and then not judging ourselves for when our mind wanders, or not sitting without pain, like anything that we judge ourselves for. Let all that go, just to be present in the moment. So let's take some time to practice. And I know I can't see you, and most of these intro workshops for me are on Zoom, where I can see people and engage. But for the purposes of exploration, let's just take a pause and notice your connections with the ground. So put your feet flat on the floor. Feel your heels and the balls of your feet on the ground, whether you're sitting or standing. Your butt is on the chair and you've got 2 sit bones. So being aware of your sit bones. Now continue to breathe and just notice that your breath is happening. And as you just breathe in and out, you're aware that there's cool air coming in your nose, going up behind your eyes. It can go over the back of your wide tongue. And check back in with your sit bones and your heels on the ground. Allow yourself to be aware of the sound in your space, so that includes my voice. but it might include cars going by outside, might include appliances or your computer fan. Maybe someone in your house is making noises, or your pet whippet is dreaming next to you, as mine is over here. Just be aware of the sounds in your space while you're still aware of your sit bones and your heels on the ground. So we're really interested in being connected to the present moment in our bodies, in our physicalness. Now check in with your fingers. What are your hands touching? Are you on the desk in front of you, or if you're on the couch, or maybe your hands are in your lap, or you're holding a coffee? Just notice the temperature, texture. Notice how your fingertips feel, and that you have a 3D nature, that there's a physicalness to you, and just what does that feel like? Checking back in to make sure you're breathing, allowing the breath to continue. Now, some people might call this a body scan meditation, and I want to be clear that meditation is not for everyone. This doesn't have to be framed as a meditation. It can be just what's happening in your body right now. For me, it really is about learning to be more aware of what's happening. So just for the next few moments, if it feels comfortable for you and you feel able to do it, allow yourself to close your eyes and continue to just breathe, noticing your breath and your tongue, your balance points on your sit bones and your heels flat on the ground. Let your eyes just be a little bit softer, and just notice you can also see with your eyes closed. The light is coming through your eyelids, and your eyes can be just a little softer. Check in with your ankles and just make sure your feet are easy. Allow your tongue to be soft and just see what comes up for you. Are you thinking about what you have to do after this? Are you feeling a little more balanced in your body? Take a couple breaths, and when you're ready, come back to this webinar. Open your eyes and just notice you can see my slideshow. I'm not sure if you can see me or not, but just notice that you could also see the outside edges of your computer screen. You can also see while you're looking at your computer, you can open your focus to see what's above your screen and what's below it, the things to the sides. You can acknowledge all of this space that's above the top of your head to the ceiling, all of the space that's above your eyes to the top of your head, and just allow all of that to be. Just find yourself balancing easily between your sit bones. Now, I'm curious, and if you could just humor me for the next few minutes, anyone who's interested in sharing in the chat, I don't actually know if you guys can see the chat. I know I can see the chat, and I know Johanna can see the chat, but if you could answer any question, or this question, what did you notice in this body scan awareness building practice of being present in your body? What's something that came up for you that was new, or new idea, or a new experience, something that you hadn't thought of? just allow a moment for anyone to share something that they noticed. Maybe I can say for myself that I noticed that my ankles were tight and that my tongue is soft. I'm feeling a little anxious knowing that there are 33 people watching this right now, and you are getting a window into my frame of the how I see the world and what I notice. I'm not seeing anything in the chat, and that's okay. So I'm going to go to my next question and see if this sparks anything for anyone. Is there anything that you'll take away from this lecture on embodiment and awareness, or something that you will try differently in the future as you approach any sort of stimulus? One thing that I hope you'll take away is this idea of giving yourself space to slow down, breathing through your nose, and regulating yourself, finding a bit more regulation through embodiment of the present moment, being free and easy in yourself, continuing to find balance in your life by finding balance in your body, on your sit bones, on your heels, continuing to embody yourself. A couple other things that I would just like to point out before we wrap up, and I move to Johanna to talk about the EAP benefits. A lot of us, because we're so 2D oriented, we spend most of our lives looking at pictures of ourselves. Pictures are flat. We look in mirrors and mirrors are flat. We look at ourselves on screens and screens are flat. And we are not actually flat people. We are face, and then there's about a foot of space behind your face. And so you've got all of this head space that you can come back into. You're on your sit bones balanced evenly. You can be easily back. And then when you're standing, allowing yourself to find that connection through your heels, bending your knees a little bit, keeping your hips easy so that you can find that balanced, easy resting place between your heels, between your sit bones, so that that balance in your body can translate to the balance in the rest of your life. So I really find that being back a little bit, less forward, less on my toes. Quite literally, the language is, I feel like I'm on my toes. That means to be falling forward. So come back, be squared on your heels, evenly on your sit bones, and find a little more laid back nature if you're really forward. And if people are saying that you're very laid back, or you're passive, or if you're feeling depressed, maybe practice coming forward closer to people and see how that sort of engagement just with space with your body affects how you feel and how you respond to stimulus. I am available for questions. I teach one-on-one in Des Moines. I've taught Alexander lessons on Zoom. I strongly recommend the Alexander technique for finding more balance, connection, and flow in your bodies. And there are great Alexander technique teachers all over America. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or would like to share something with me directly that maybe you weren't feeling confident to share in the chat, here is my email address. And as I turn it over to Johanna to talk about EAP benefits, I'd like you just to consider this idea of being present on your sit bones while you're listening to her speak as we transition, just noticing your breath and feeling what you feel as you go about the rest of your day. Thank you very much. Johanna.
Thanks, Jay. And if anyone has questions or comments that they'd like to share, go ahead and use the chat and we can do a Q&A after I share more information about the benefits. Just wanted to remind anyone who's listening today with EFR's Employee Assistance Program that you have access to a wide variety of benefits that can help you manage life's challenges. You have 24-hour phone support at 800-327-4692, access to free in-person or telehealth counseling sessions. We have financial consultation, legal consultation, elder and child care resources, identity theft resolution, and life coaching, which are all telephonic-based resources. We always say life happens, we're here to help, and the things that are causing stress, frustration, worry, anxiety, if you've experienced a loss, if you're going through a big life transition, all those things can affect your mind, body, and spirit. And so we want to be a resource for you, and we are one phone call away. All of our services are completely confidential, and we are here to help. So don't forget about your EAP benefits. The next slide is just a reminder that we also have an app. You can search EFR in either the Apple App Store or Google Play, and you can access information related to our benefits, but also you can listen to our podcast, register for upcoming webinars, view past webinars, and stay up to date with our monthly blog. So speaking of our podcast, it's just fun to let you know that Jay was on the podcast and he's the April guest. So if you thought this conversation was interesting and want to hear more from Jay, please visit our podcast. It's called Emotion Well. You can find us in Apple Podcast Player, Spotify, Google Podcasts. It's on our website. It's in our app. So whatever your favorite podcast player is, we are there under Emotion Well. And like I said, Jay is our April guest. So thank you, Jay, for presenting today and also being the guest on our April podcast. Any questions or comments? As a reminder, we do monthly webinars. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are going to have a special webinar that's a little bit longer. Typically our webinars are 30 minutes, but we're going to be with Jason Haglund for 1 hour in May. And to register for that, you go to efr.org and click on the Stay Connected menu, and you'll register for the webinar. He'll be speaking about how to move ahead in Mental Health Awareness Month. Questions, comments for Jay? A question that we often get, and I'll answer before someone asks, is this recording going to be available? And the answer is yes, it will be on our website probably by the end of the day today. Again, if you go to that efr.org webpage and click on the Stay Connected menu. But there was a lot of great feedback, Jay, when you asked them to comment on kind of what they were experiencing through that guided relaxation that you led them through, and there were a lot of great comments there. So it looks like people were noticing things. I noticed that my feet were cold, but my hands were warm. And I just love the idea of being more mindful as it relates to the body that we live in. And like you said, we're not flat beings. Like the world is not flat. We are not flat. We're multidimensional, and we need to keep that in mind because there's a lot of distractions in the world. And you're right, we do a lot of things in that kind of two-dimensional space. So such great information.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, hopefully everyone will come back for our May 17th webinar. Thank you, Jay, and we appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.